New world.
Bottom level, orange beam, enjoy yourself. Bottom level, orange beam, enjoy yourself. Bottom level, orange beam, enjoy yourself.
What's happening here?
This is a group of semi-moron epsilons that are going on a nature nausea reinforcement field trip to...
I can see that. I meant what's taking you so long.
Oh, right away, sir. There you are, all set. Bottom level, orange beam, enjoy yourself. Now, sir.
Central Hatcheries plant. Priority.
I'm sorry, sir. There's a circuit delay.
Oh, next.
The Cathedral of our Ford, please. Just a moment, if you don't mind. I don't think you understood. I said priority. I happen to be the assistant director of the Central Hatcheries plant.
Yes, sir. All circuit check.
Really, these gammas, they're hardly brighter than a delta. Or even epsilons.
Oh, no. I'm sure any delta is much brighter than epsilons like those. That's one of the wonderful things about being a gamma. We're not too stupid and we're not too bright. To be a gamma is to be just right. All right, sir. Central Hatcheries, red beam, first level. All right, sir.
The Cathedral of our Ford, please.
The Cathedral of our Ford. First level, blue beam.
Oh, the Cathedral of our Ford. Then I suppose you're part of the Archford Synth religion staff.
No, I'm just trying to catch hold of someone who's supposed to be there. Actually, I'm with the Sensu Feely Corps.
Oh, a Telly-Feely writer.
Not yet. I'm still working on my first docu-jango short. It's on the perfection of conditioning.
Oh, yes. Very interesting, aren't you? Well, I go this way. Miss Lysenko, may I see you for a moment, please?
Hello, Tomakin.
I might have a little surprise for little Linda.
Oh, what? Tell me.
It has something to do with taking you on a very special computer holiday trip.
I don't know. Ringo Roebuck wants me to go with him to the Sexorama Festival. And Anwar Bowie wants to take me for a week to a new Senso World Park. And Ronald Jagger has round-trip tickets
special?
to...
It's to the Savage Reservation.
Oh, that's different. Everyone will be so envious. But are you sure about it?
Oh, it's just a formality. Just a question of my application being correctly... Miss Lysenko, why is this section closed down?
Oh, something that was supposed to go click, click started going clack, clack. But naturally, I wouldn't know what. I'm just a beta.
Of course.
Linda, I have to go now, Tomakin.
Of course.
Artificial sunset has been reset for 6:04 due to technical delays. Artificial sunset has been reset for 6:04 due to technical delays.
Sir, your assistant board chief, sir?
Yes? Oh, Helmholtz Watson, about teletesting your docu-short.
I know you're very busy, sir, but I do need approval from your office.
I have to address some alpha graduates in synthoculture, and then a meeting with the committee on consumption norms and standards. Yes, right after that, I think.
Good morning. So that's a very old BBC production of Brave New World. We could sit here and watch it. It's 4 hours long. I think it might be even slightly longer than that. It was a made-for-TV production. One of the first things I noticed, and something that you probably noticed, was even though this was produced in, I think, the late 70s, maybe 1978, the alphas, if you notice, it was already very racially sensitive about that. The alphas are quite black. There's a lot of black alphas. And again, like this is BBC. This is something that they produced in England. And in the late 70s in England, they already knew that they had to make the alphas black, which I found at first I thought it was a little surprising because of the year that it was made. I thought, oh wow, they got started on this a lot earlier than I had anticipated, but I guess nothing really shocks me anymore. So how you guys doing? We have Christmas coming up very soon. I guess tomorrow is Christmas Eve. Is that correct? Look, yep. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. Today, I thought it was yesterday, but that's because when we were talking, the international date line, it can be a bitch sometimes. Today, I will be on Patriotic Alternative, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, and we're going to talk about Q, believe it or not, and how some people are still clinging onto Q, which is a little amazing. It's a little amazing. Not again, this is another one of those things. Not entirely surprising, and I don't suspect that Q is going to go away, like for good. I don't. Maybe ever. Like maybe never. There's a surprising amount of people that cling on to things that never go anywhere. Just as an example, there was a globalist back in the 1950s, I want to say, that wanted to make a universal language for Earth called Esperanto. In fact, they made a whole movie in Esperanto starring William Shatner, where every line of the fucking movie, like it's Captain Kirk reciting his in Captain Kirk style, reciting his lines in Esperanto, a totally made up language. I had a uncle who was he was kind of a genius, and he knew something like 11 different languages fluently. And he wanted me to learn Esperanto because he knew Esperanto. One of his languages was Esperanto. He wanted me to learn Esperanto. He sent me all these Esperanto language materials, like these books and some tapes and stuff like that, and was like, "Yo, learn Esperanto." And I played around with it. It was fun. I was a little kid, and so I thought, "Oh, this could be neat." And eventually, lost interest because it's Esperanto. It's dead. Not only is it a made up language, it's a dead made up language. And but if you look it up, because I was curious there, recently, like is it still? Are there anyone that is there anyone that still tries to make this a thing? And there's still people. There's still like an Esperanto society or something like that still does meetings and still conducts meetings entirely in Esperanto and when it didn't take like it's 70 years ago they tried to make this a thing and it was never a thing. In fact, I would say Q became more popular than Esperanto ever was. So that's because the barrier to entry for Q is pretty low. The cost is very low. There's not a whole lot of cost to becoming a Q-tard initially, and there's a tremendous amount of cost to learning an entirely new made-up language. So it's funny. The Esperanto, the way that it worked, it was structured. You could tell it was made by a globalist, right? Because even though the global power there already is an international language. Let's just be honest. It's English, right? And it was really, you can tell that whoever designed Esperanto just didn't like that the international language was English. It was unfair. And so he was going to right this wrong. And he was going to do it totally fair. So when he made Esperanto, that's what he did. Is he excuse me, I'm still a little sick. He was going to analyze languages of the world that had far more native speakers than English, and more heavily incorporate elements of their language into Esperanto. And as you can tell by the name, a lot of it was Spanish. In fact, I remember there was a song on the tape. I don't remember what this means anymore, but there was the chorus was Yenia Mando, Yenia, which sounds Spanish, right? And there was a lot of it sounded Spanish. And I don't remember the background of the guy. Maybe the guy himself came from a Spanish-speaking background, but yeah, there was Spanish, French, Latin, a lot of different stuff, plugged into it. At any rate, Esperanto. Now I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and I'm going to release the lemons that I forgot to do yesterday, or whenever it was I last streamed. So I'm going to do that right now. You guys are going to get a bunch. Open the chest. So all you early birds will get the worms. There's a lot of lemons in there. So here we go. They should have just called it Mexican. Yes, well, the Mexican thing is kind of funny. Like, because there is a lot of, there's not just a lot of Spanish speakers out there. There's a lot of variation in Spanish speaking. And there's also the Portuguese, right? Like a lot of the South American countries. And I've noticed just regionally, when I've talked to people from around the world that know some Spanish or some Portuguese, and I'll be talking to them about something because I'm in the southwestern United States. So when I talk about Spanish things, it's usually Mexican influence. And I've had people try to correct my Spanish as if I don't know what I'm talking about, because it's not that I haven't lived in a heavily Spanish influenced place my entire life, but it's because it's Mexican Spanish is different in some ways than Spanish from around the world. In fact, a lot of other Spanish speaking people, in the same way that like African blacks will often not like American blacks, a lot of other Spanish-speaking countries do not like Mexicans, and they think it's low class. I ran into that when I worked at a Spanish television network for a little while. There was a hierarchy. There was the Chad Spaniard. He was actually really tall. He was like, because I'm pretty tall, and he was much taller than I am. He must have been like 6'8" or something like that. And I remember the Mexicans would always say, "Oh, he sounds gay. Like his accent sounds gay to us. Like he has a lisp." And and you could kind of pick up on that, honestly, even as the English speaker. But Mexicans thought everyone sounded gay. They really hated English accents. They really hated English accents. Like British accents. I think there was a mixture of they struggled to understand it, but they thought that it sounded very condescending, like in a way that, they really hated British accents. Like it was, it was a weird thing because it was universal. Like it was, like I remember the first time someone mentioned something about it, I was just like, oh, just some one of these guys just doesn't like British accents. But then I kept hearing that over and over. Like any opportunity it had to come up, and then you'd look up from whatever you were working on, and everyone would be like nodding their head, like, yeah, I fucking hate those accents, and you're just like, what the fuck? So, at any rate, resentful of the high class sound. Yes, they are. They are very resentful of the high class sound. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and I don't have anything too formally put together, and I don't want to talk about Q, because I'm going to be talking about Q later on today, extensively. I will say this about Q. If you were promoting Q for, like, still in 2020 especially, like maybe at the beginning I'll give you a pass, right? Like if you were like, oh, this is maybe possible, and then you figured out like, oh, this is clearly dumb. If you were promoting Q in 2020, you should be ridiculed and never taken seriously ever again, ever. Because one, you're either bad for the movement because you're just dumb. You're not smart enough to have, you're dangerously dumb, dangerously stupid. Or you're dangerously delusional because they were, like, again, I'm talking about 2020. By 2020, there should be no Q faith in anyone who's not delusional or stupid in your mind. Or the third option is you are an asshole and you know it's bullshit and you're making money off of it. So you're just this cynical fucking grifting fuckhead. So those are the options. There's no fourth option. Either you're a fucking moron and you just don't know any better, in which case no one should take you seriously. You're mentally ill, which once again, no one should take you seriously. Or you're evil. You're doing the devil's work. Because QAnon is a lie, and the devil is the father of lies, or the king of lies. Jesse Lee Peterson would basically say that you're a children of the lie. You're a child of the lie. I don't know, however he puts it, I don't know. But yeah, it's a lie. So if you knowingly pushed it, you're basically working for Satan. So those are your three options right there, buddy. Are you stupid, crazy, or evil? Now, there is repentance. There is a pathway back, but it's long. It's not just, I'm going to do a public apology the way that a lot of these senators used to when they would get caught. Now they don't even do that, right? But at least back when I was a kid, when senators would get caught fucking their interns or something like that, they would make these really plastic, fake apologies. And they'd be very public, and they'd put them all over CNN and NBC and all these places. And people would know how fake it was. Like they would joke about how fake it was, and in fact, even outlets like Silent Live would make fun of them. But it's all the same, somehow they were still that absolved them somehow. Oh, they made the fake apology. They can be senators again, and nothing, and no prosecutions or anything like that, of course. And they'd win re-election, maybe fraudulently. Who knows? But yeah, that's not how it works anymore. For politicians, it doesn't work that way because they just don't even apologize anymore. They don't even make that effort. And the media doesn't even bother reporting it. But that's not how it works for me if you've been pushing Q in 2020. There's you have to make amends. That's part of repentance. A lot of people don't think about that aspect of repentance. In fact, in my view, that's why you can't repent of certain things. Not in this life, at least. If I kill someone, for example, I can't... How do you make amends for that? You going to raise them from the dead? You know, if I steal a pineapple from you, I can give you another pineapple. You know, it doesn't totally make up for the fact that you didn't have your pineapple when you wanted it or whatever, but at least I'm able to give it back. If I kill someone, if I kill your daughter, I can't give you your daughter back. So, a necessary part of repentance is restoring that which you took. And I would say the same thing applies to, excuse me, rape. You know, you can't unrape someone. You can't unrape someone. So, again, I don't think that's something that you can repent of in this world. Now, with Q, if you were promoting that, especially for profit, well, there's one way you can restore it. You can return the profits. Oh, but you're not going to do that, are you? Of course you're not. You're not going to do that. You wouldn't do that. But that's one way you could do it. I'd take you seriously again if you were returning the profits you'd made by promoting the lie. And again, it wouldn't fix all the damage that you'd done. But I'd certainly believe you're a little more serious about being sorry about doing that if at least you made good on that. But no one's going to do that, right? Which is why I think these people are just dangerous. They're dangerous. They're bad for the movement. And in coming years, it's kind of like the scene. I know this is a movie, and I was trying to think of what movie this is, and maybe someone in chat will know. I was trying to think of what movie this was where... And this is like one of those foggy memories where I might even be mixing like multiple movies in my head because this was from such a long time ago. But I have this memory. It doesn't really matter like the movie itself because this scene is really what matters. And that scene is it's like World War II or something like that. Might be Vietnam. Fuck, I don't remember. And there's a bunch of soldiers, and they have to be really quiet. And they're in this really stressful situation where they're having to be sneaky behind enemy lines. And they are really close to the enemy. And one of the soldiers starts to crack. He starts to crack, and he's making too much fucking noise. And the other soldiers are looking at him because he's going to get everyone else killed if he keeps making the fucking noise. And they try to quiet him down. And they try to get him to stop making the noise because he's going to kill him. And like as this is going on, like an enemy guard is approaching. An enemy guard that if he hears them, like the whole mission's over, they're all dead. You know, that kind of a thing. And they silently, wordlessly make the call. They have to kill him. That's the only way, or they all die. And so they slit his wrist, or not his wrist, his throat, and kill him. And it's like this powerful moment in the film, again, or films, or I don't know, dream I had at this point. I'll look at chat. Maybe the delay is long enough to where you've heard this what I'm saying here. And this person bleeds out. I believe it's from Band of Brothers. Yeah, it could be. Is that Thin Red Line or Platoon? It could be either one of those. But everyone gets the scene I'm talking about, right? It's one of those situations where, the guy cracks, he becomes a liability, and they can't even have him, like, they might love this guy. Like, really love this guy, like, as a brother. And he can't, that's your option. You got to leave him bleeding on the battlefield, because if you let him continue with you guys, you're all dead. He's a liability. Now, I'm not saying we're going to kill QAnon people, obviously, but I'm just saying That and by the way, this isn't so much the people who just believed in Q, because there's we still need those people, unfortunately, and hopefully a lot of those people are snapping out of it. I'm talking the people who actively pushed it, the people who made it never die, the people that could have influenced, could have easily have said, you know what, this isn't real, and I'm sorry. And if they had done that again, well before 2020, or even like sometime during 2020, before it became obvious, before it was no longer something that they could milk, like if they could have quit and said, you know what, I'm sorry, I pushed this looks fake, I was tricked, I no longer want to be tricking you with something I was tricked by. I don't have some insane ego that makes me unable to admit that I was tricked. I was tricked, and let's move on from there. That would have been fine. But that's not what a lot of these people did. They kept. I mean, there's people that are still fucking pushing it. Still. In fact, and for those people who, and I said I wasn't going to talk about Q. I'm going to talk about Q just a little bit, just this one little part, and then we'll move on. There are people, like if you go to BitChute, because I'm slowly myself making the transition from YouTube to BitChute just out of necessity, right? Like none of my favorite creators are on YouTube anymore. Or if they are, it's funny because they don't show up in my feed anymore. So it's like there's a lot of these people, they make a video and you don't even know about it. And there's no way I just didn't see it in the feed, because as someone who does this for a living, my feed's like almost always open, and I always scroll all the way through it to make sure there's nothing I missed. And but there's just certain creators that don't show up in the feed, if they're even still on YouTube, and a lot of them aren't even on YouTube. So I'm trying to warm up to the not as clean interface of BitChute and other platforms. And BitChute has a trending tab, and every day the top trending videos are Q people. Every day. And for those of you who think that Q is just like this, why you talk so much about Q? Q is such an obscure thing. Q is not as big as you think. Oh, really? Is Tucker Carlson a big thing? Because Q is at least as big as Tucker Carlson. Q is the blue line. Tucker Carlson's the red line. Q is about as influential as Tucker Carlson. Okay? And if Tucker Carlson doesn't do it for you, what about Mike Pence? Before the election, Q was more popular than Mike Pence. Because that maybe put a little more into perspective for you. So there's still people trusting the plan. And which is amazing to me. And there will, like I said, and there still will be, if Biden's sworn in, which is almost a certainty at this point. But who knows? Like I said, it ain't over till it's over. Something amazing could happen on the 6th. But if it does, it won't be because of Q. In fact, the funny thing is, I think the rally on the 6th that Trump is engineering to generate a threat of violence to the people in the Capitol building who will be voting on the 6th. I think the attendance will be negatively affected by Q. So even now, Q is still doing damage to Trump. Because why would you show up on the 6th? I mean, you're trusting the plan. There's a plan. Clearly everything's still under control, right? I mean, Patriots in control. Trust Sessions, trust Barr, trust Ray. Oh, boy. That's the funny thing. The goalpost has been moved so much. I was looking up. They made Q post searchable, or at least I'm sure a couple of people have done this, but I found a site that did that. And after Barr was fired, I just searched for Barr to see what ridiculous things Q had said about Bill Barr in the past. I mean, I'll just go down. This is the short list. Open up. I posted this on my Telegram. You should be following me on Telegram. I think it's t.me/Devin Stagg. Let's see here. Yeah, so these are just a couple of things. These are a handful of things that Q said about Bill Barr. Barr will declassify a secret Huber investigation and start arresting people. Barr is handling the Epstein case, and that case will implicate Pelosi's daughter. Now, obviously, Q said that before Epstein was suicided. Barr will declassify the real Mueller report that exposes the Democrats and then start arresting Democrats. Of course, that never happened. Barr is going to give Nunes a special Epstein report, and that's going to be like when the hammer starts to drop. Of course, again, he said that before Epstein was suicided. Barr is going to be so threatening to the ruling class that the House of Representatives was going to try to remove Barr by opening endless investigations into Barr in order to stop the Q plan. Of course, none of that happened. Trump was the one who ended up firing him. Barr is going to possibly stop the impeachment. That was even something Q wasn't sure on, so he was left that kind of open-ended. And it clearly didn't happen. Barr and Durham, and this is the one that a lot of Q people are still hanging on to, are working on a secret investigation to bring down the Democrats. Barr is going to go public with the plan very soon. And that's why Jeff Flake and Paul Ryan left office, which happened, like 2 years ago? And I forget the exact date of that Q post because I forgot to write down the dates of these things, which would have been helpful. But obviously it was a while ago if Jeff Flake and Paul Ryan had just left office. And then last but not least, Barr, it's a good thing that Barr used to work at the CIA. That's why he was chosen for the Q plan. Because he knew how the CIA operated. So that's just a handful of things that Q had to say about Barr. I mean, you can search for Ray, you get the same kind of crap. You search for Sessions, you get the same kind of a thing. And it doesn't matter if you have this info is necessary bullshit excuse. I mean, the disinfo is all this is. Nothing that excuse me. Nothing seems to be panning out at all. What with this plan. But anyway, if you want to hear more about Q, I'll go into more detail, and maybe I'll get the dates of some of these, and maybe I'll do some more searches in the Q post between now and 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, and we'll talk about it. And it's funny because you get a lot of these people raging when I talk shit about the same people that are addicted to Q are the same people that are the don't black pill me bro people. Because it's the people that are mentally unstable and they're not mentally capable of, it's the people basically literally that should just not be involved in this game. Because it's too much for them. Because if you can't operate in the realm of the truth, when the truth is bad, when you have to believe a lie just to get up in the morning, it's too much for you. This isn't for you. And in fact, you're part of the problem at this point. As I said recently, the black pill to me isn't that the ruling class acts like predators. It's that the citizens act like prey. and the Q-tards are the perfect prey animal. All right. So in terms of news, we'll just talk about this a little bit briefly, I guess. Let me look at chat. Maybe there's something I missed here. Alternative Hypothesis keeps comments on his YouTube channel for his BitChute videos and has no comments for BitChute. Why is that? I've never heard of doing that. I don't know why you would do that. That's odd. Yeah, BitChute comments are pretty much cancer. You know, like, I don't even look at them because it's not regulated in any way, and there's just a lot of people that take advantage of that, so they just spew nonsense. And I don't just mean like, I hate you, black pill. I mean, there's obviously going to be a lot of that, and no matter what. But there's just spam and just like, you know, just garbage. The comments are just complete cancer. So I don't even, you know, bother with the BitChute comments anymore. So maybe that's why he's doing it. Yeah, okay. I guess that's why he does it. Alt Hype doesn't want weirdo commenters. Yep. Well, that's a smart thing. I don't even know how to. Maybe there's a way to turn. I know there's a way to turn off the comments actually, because I saw that Mark Dice is. I didn't see, because Mark Dice, let's face it, he's kind of milquetoast, right? And I don't know that. I think that maybe he's moving exclusively off of YouTube. I saw something about it. I didn't dig any further, but I did notice that now he is posting to BitChute, which I don't think he was doing before. And I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to see if BitChute Mark Dice is any different than YouTube Mark Dice. And I clicked on one, and surprisingly, he was different. In fact, he came really close to naming them, which was surprising to me. Because he has always avoided that, right? Now, Mark Dice, you know, he is what he is. He's kind of normie, but he's done some good work in the past. He actually wrote a book that I bought it was almost like a guide, a quick guide to conspiracy people. Well, it had just conspiracies. And I forget the name of it. It's got conspiracy in the name. I'm sure you can find it. I'm sure it's still on sale on Amazon because it's Mark Dice. And I got mine used off eBay, so there's that too, because it sold well enough to where there's copies floating around. But it was a good book where it gave you a nice little rundown on all the different people. Like it has Bill Cooper in there, his opinion on it, and some of it's opinion, some of it's fact. But it's a good reference guide, I guess, to a lot of different people in the conspiracy space. You know, it's a little older, right? It's an older book. And he was more conspiracy than he was pro-Trump back in the day. And some of his stuff's pretty okay. But then he got really wrapped up into Trump and just became kind of like this basic bitch Trump guy. And it was funny because he again was totally afraid to call out Jewish power. There's a lot of evangelicals that do this, where they have no problem saying that like the Masons and the Mormons and, you know, whatever are doing something, but like, which, okay, maybe they are, right? But not to the degree that the fucking Jews are, right? There's maybe like a couple, like, you know, Romney and McMuffin and, you know, like a couple Mormons that are in power. But they're not like international bankers, and they're not to the same degree. In fact, this is how you know that there's a very here's how you know that Jewish power is a real thing. There's more Mormons in America than there are Jews, so you would expect that there would be a lot more Mormons in powerful positions, right? If that's what they were doing, but no, of course not. That's not the thing. So he doesn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, but he came really close in that one video that I guess he posted yesterday or the day before. He said that there was a group you can't even name, because if you did name them, that the ADL would come at you he made it obvious who he was talking about, but he still didn't name them. Came very close. Very close, though. At any rate, that's Mark Dice for you. Let me take a look here. Molyneux is a Jew. Yeah, Molyneux, I'll tell you what. The reason why Molyneux has changed his story about his background and how it relates to Jewish DNA enough to where I'd have to see it. I want to see a 23andMe before I believe anything that he's saying about his heritage. Not that it would change anything about the way, like, honestly, that's the thing that the cover-up ends up being worse than the lie, right? Like, if Molyneux had just said, like, yeah, I've got a grandma who's Jewish, or whatever it ends up being. Because if you look, like, now his story is, oh, no, I had, like, a step-grandma that was Jewish, but she wasn't related by blood, and so I'm not Jewish. And it's like, okay, maybe that's the truth. I don't know. But I've got this video of a few years ago of you saying that you are part Jewish. So, and you get really weird about the Jewish topic, and there's other things that make me feel like something's weird here. And you dodge things because he's a terrible liar. He's a terrible liar. And so every time he lies, it's very cringy and just like, oh God, like he's totally lying right now. And he's lied about that issue enough to where I don't know where the truth is. And again, like I said, the cover-up is worse than the lie. So if all he said was like, yeah, I'm a 16th Jew or 8th Jew or whatever, literally no one would care. Very few people would care. But because he's being all sneaky and weird about it, that's where I'm like, something's up here. Something's weird. And by the way, that's why his numbers plummeted before. I mean, look, obviously he was getting attacked by the algorithm and stuff like that, but so were all of us. And his numbers cratered before he got kicked off of YouTube for like a half year. Like, they went into the toilet, and that was a big part of it, because one of the great things about Molyneux was the perception that he was being honest. In fact, that's, to me at least, as a content creator, that's just suicide. Most people don't care if you're wrong about stuff sometimes, because no one can be right all the time. Anyone saying that they're right all the time is full of shit. I'm sure I've got things wrong, you know, but I don't think that people think I'm lying to them. And that's the one thing you can do that will totally ruin your reputation. Because why would I want to? I mean, if I want to listen to lies, I'll listen to fucking Fox News or CNN or, the whole point of being an alternative source of information, even if it's not, like, okay, maybe it's not super reliable all the time because maybe they get like a detail wrong, or because they don't have like a team of producers and, they have limited resources, right? But at least I know they're not fucking lying to me. They're not trying to manipulate me. And in my case, like I said, if I'm presenting propaganda to you, I tell you it's propaganda. I tell you, like, hey, this is propaganda. Something that other outlets aren't going to do. So no one thinks that a lot of like Molyneux, I think one of the appeals that he had early on was that no one thought that he was lying. Like, okay, he's kind of a douche sometimes. He's got like this ego going on, but he's just, he's not lying. He's not right all the time, but he's right about a lot of stuff, and he's clearly smart, and I don't think he's lying to me. Well, that is, as soon as there starts to be indications that you're lying, no one wants to hear what you have to say anymore because you're lying. That's, and I knew as soon as, because that's what happened to me. I used to watch his stuff fairly regularly because he would do these long videos, and I like longer videos because I can put them on and I can listen to them as I do work and that sort of thing. And I don't have to keep going back because I'm not going to pay for the stupid YouTube app, so I guess you can make playlists and stuff like that, but I was just going to it's easier for me to put on like a 2-hour long video about whatever and have it on, and because that's just how I like to listen to these things. But I don't want to listen to a liar for 2 hours. And as soon as I saw him lie and I saw him avoid topics, that was the other thing too. If you avoid topics, it's the same thing as lying, because it's lying by omission. I'm done with you at that point. And by the way, that applies to anyone who is promoting Q. Not to like bring it full circle. If you were promoting Q, you were lying. You're a liar. Or you're retarded. Or you're delusional. Okay. Which is more forgivable, I guess, than being a liar. You know, being retarded and delusional. But why would you want to get your information from someone who's retarded and delusional? You know what I mean? Excuse me. I think people underestimate how some people claim to have Jewish ancestry and try not to get attacked for racism and anti-Semitism. I think people underestimate how some people claim... I'm not sure what you're getting at. Are you meaning that they're afraid of being attacked for being Jewish? I mean, look, there's a lot of people in this space, even in like the quote unquote more anti-Semitic parts of this space, that they don't. Remember Frame Games? That maybe you guys don't. There was a guy who was 100% Jew, 100% Ashkenazi Jew, and he went by Frame Games. He has since disappeared from the internet. But he was a Jew. He was a smart Jew, and he would talk about the way that Jewish organizations would exploit people. He would talk about, for example, Saul Alinsky's tactics and things like that. And it was a lot of stuff that I was already familiar with, but it was a lot of stuff that many people hadn't heard. And he presented it in an intelligent way. He was often a guest on JF's show. He produced good content, and when he left the space, it wasn't because people were like, "Oh, he's a Jew." Maybe there were some people that were like that. I don't know, but I think he left because of Jews threatening him. I don't know this for a fact, but that's kind of what I've been told. So no one really cares about that as much as Molyneux lost more view. Let's put it this way: if Molyneux is let's just say he's like an eighth Jew or something like that, right? Or whatever it is. Let's say he's half Jewish. Who cares? Molyneux lost more momentum and political will, or that's not the right word for it, political capital. And trustworthiness by lying about that 50% Jewishness. Again, who knows? Or it could be zero, right? He lost more trust in the public trust by being weird about it than if he had just said, "Yeah, look, I'm half Jewish. And I'm uncomfortable with the JQ because I'm half Jewish," or whatever, right? Like, people would have been like, okay. And yeah, there'd be some people that would just never want to listen to him because he's a dirty Jew or, whatever, right? But I think most people, including myself, would have been like, okay, that's fine. At least now I know where your biases are, that's why it's important to know this stuff. It's not because we need to sniff out the Jew, Like, we just have to know where you're coming from, right? Like, if you have a bias, because come on, that's gonna give you a bias. If you have a bias on a topic that is very important to Western civilization, and your whole shtick is saving Western civilization, and you've got this bias that you're not telling people about, that needs to come out in the open. And it's okay that you have the bias, and people are always going to, they might take that into account when listening to what you say, but they're still going to want to listen to what you say because they're not going to think that you're being sneaky or lying. And I think that was the problem with Molyneux. It's funny, so many people were like, oh, you should go on Molyneux. And I'm like, well, first of all, you can't, just invite yourself on other people's shows, but I knew how ridiculous that was because I had already talked about Jewish power. And I was like, no, he'll never have me on now. He'll never have, and a lot that's the funny thing. Didn't seem to save his channel, did it? Right? Like, look who's obscurely on BitChute now, getting a fraction of the views that he used to get. But he wouldn't touch people like me with a 10-foot pole. He wouldn't even touch more mainstream type people if they had mentioned Jewish power with a 10-foot pole. He wouldn't have people like Ryan Dawson on to discuss 9/11. No, he'd find like the kookiest, easiest person to debate in the world so that he could easily shut it down when it came to 9/11. Because, like I said, he was not being intellectually honest. If you were being intellectually honest, you don't look for straw men. You don't look for you want to steel man, as they say, the argument. You want to be able to make your opponent's argument better than they can make it themselves. You don't look for the easiest. You don't do like the. I think socialism's bad. Prove me wrong. At a college campus, and then just swat down the retards that show up. Or in the case of what's that faggot's name that likes to wear dresses all the time? You guys know who I'm talking about. Anyway, Stephen Crowder. In Crowder's case, he actually got owned a couple of times. They just don't make those videos widely available. But that's the thing. There's a lot of these people that they want to look like they're really good at debating, but they don't want to actually engage the real ideas behind their opponents. And so they find people that are easy to beat. And that's another erosion of the trust. I can't trust you necessarily because now that I'm thinking, so this isn't about you actually engaging with the idea. This isn't about you actually trying to teach people anything. It's about you looking smart. It's about you, winning some stupid debate. So it's, that's the problem with it's, and a lot of these people, it's you realize pretty quickly, and it's tied, it's tied together. You realize pretty quickly that why they're in this game. They're in this game because of ego. They're not in this game out of any kind of pursuit of truth. And like maybe that's why they got started. I don't know. But there's a lot of people who are in this game for ego reasons, or for financial reasons. And it's hard for me to relate to either one of those, honestly. I mean, trust me. I should do a better job of promoting ways in which people can donate and stuff like that. Because I'm on a shoestring budget over here, and no one complains about getting more money, that sort of a thing, right? I understand that you got to make a living, but there are people that this is like it's a brand. It's that's what it is for them. It's not. It's about squeezing as much money out of it as possible. It's not, and it has nothing to do with any kind of ideology. And or pursuit of truth or anything like that. It's not an intellectual or philosophical endeavor for them. It's a financial one. And or an ego one. It's a power thing where it's kind of like I've described in the past, where you look at the mega churches and you go to their website, and oftentimes the pictures of the preacher are larger than the pictures of Jesus, because at those mega churches, it's about a charismatic leader, and that's the center of attention. He's why they're going, and that's it has nothing real. Jesus is just kind of like the window dressing, but the main course is that preacher. And that's kind of how a lot of these people are too. And it works. It works on people. I've talked about that's how Trump ran his campaign. It was about Trump, not about any kind of ideology. Okay. Let's take a look here. It's a survival instinct for them. They act like this naturally. I'm friends with better ones, but you all have those tendencies. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're talking about Jews, maybe? I accept the stereotypes, but all I'm saying is not everyone with that heritage is fucking evil and in on it. Yeah, I guess you're talking about Jews. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, having some Jewish DNA doesn't make you evil. Now, but I've also talked about too. I mean, it's also not. You can't just ignore genetics also do inform some behaviors. That's just the way it is. Just like that. Yeah, there are some based black guys, right? But 13 still does 50, and that's not because of ideological reasons. I mean, maybe that's a small part of it, but a lot of that's genetics, and that applies to all of us. We all, in some ways, behave like our parents. It is what it is. It is what it is. That's why that's why for thousands of years, or really since the beginning of time, multiculturalism has always led to disaster. Because a lot of these behaviors, a lot of these life strategies, a lot of these, I guess, value systems are hardwired into us. And so when you mix a bunch of other people, it's just like a bunch of people trying to move in different directions. Because it's like how the right used to look at the left, and they used to say, and not so much nowadays, but they used to look at the left and say, we want the same things, we just have a different way of getting there. Like we both want, prosperity for America, and they just think that a more efficient way of accomplishing that is leftism, and we think that a more efficient way of accomplishing that is, conservatism or whatever. And then you come to find out eventually that, oh no, they don't even want the same thing we want. And that's how it is in a multicultural society. Whether you're talking about, mixing blacks and Asians and Indians, or whites and Jews, and even among the different flavors of white, there are different ideologies and behaviors. I mean, all you have to do is you look at the Nordic parts of Europe, and you have more socialist view of how to run. That's how you're supposed to run governments. Whereas if you look at well, not anymore, but like it has since evolved. But like if you look at the more personal freedoms, personal responsibility, style of government that created, America, that's more from Western Europe, And so there's even some difference. And by the way, you could see that translated to America. When the Nordic whites came to America, they went to places like Minnesota and Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, I believe it was, had the first socialist governor in America. And that's why. So a lot of that stuff, it's genetic. So you can't just ignore it and act as though that doesn't exist. It does exist. But at the same time, it doesn't disqualify you from being a serious person, or it doesn't make you, oh, you've got a drop of the Jew blood, you're evil now. I get that. And there are people that are they're overreacting to the problem. The problem is because they're like the immune system. They see that multiculturalism is the disease that's endangering, it's creating an existential threat. And so their reaction to that is an overreaction, because the problem's big and no one else is reacting. And so when no one else is pushing back, sometimes you have to push back really hard because you're the only one pushing. And I think that's what a lot of people do, and they kind of take it a little too far. And by the way, the ruling class needs to really pay attention to that aspect of what's going on, because that's not an isolated phenomenon. Right? If people really start to feel, as I 100% believe they do right now, that the system isn't there's no one on the inside helping them, and that there's no one helping them push back, they're going to push back way too hard. They're not going to just send the pendulum back the other way. They're going to send it erratically swinging around, smashing everything on its way onto the other side. And like a wrecking ball. And when exactly that'll happen, I don't know. But the longer it takes to happen, the harder they're going to fucking push it. Because what do you hear from people? Like, everyone's just, the frustration level's getting higher and higher and higher. I don't know at what point that you reach a saturation point. I don't know at what point that the watershed moment happens. I don't know. But I can tell you they're starting to figure this out. You're more and more you're seeing mainstream media even sort of tiptoe around this. Like, guys, it's fun and all winning the culture war here, but the more we're dunking on these people, the more rage is building up. And the right doesn't have a history of solving big problems with nice words. The right has a history of solving big problems with big solutions that involve a lot of force. Historically, that's how it's gone down. Now, you could say the left also does this sort of a thing, with communism and stuff like that, and there's a lot more genocide that comes out of the left than out of the right, and that's a tough one to argue, at least with or argue against, at least in terms of modern history, right? There's been far more genocides and totalitarian evil that's come from the communists in the last couple hundred years than out of any right-wing explosion of popular force, or whatever you'd want to call that. But the right-wing governments have always been very short-lived too, because they haven't been able to successfully take hold. You could, unless you want to say America was a right-wing empire, which I don't know. I guess you could sort of make the argument at certain points in its history it was, but by and large, not so much. All right, let's take a look at chat again. The last 9 months have taught me that there's no fight coming. Well, I don't know. I don't know that there's no fight coming. It just will have to get a lot worse. It has to get a lot worse. Here's the problem. It was way easier to fuck up the food supply in previous generations, right? Like right now, what's the big problem in America? Everyone's fat. Like, it's more of a problem that people eat too much than eat too little. Because technology has brought us this. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to not have enough food. You have to really think of how bad the ruling class would have to fuck things up to not have enough food for people. Technology has basically solved the food problem. And they've also, because look at what's different, right? Between now and in times when people finally have had enough and have risen up against their governments. It's because it becomes not just an existential threat in theory, where you can look at statistics and realize, oh, by the year 2040, we're going to be completely disenfranchised from the country that our ancestors built. That's all theoretical stuff. A lot of people don't even have the intellectual capacity to even know what that means, right? So it's not going to motivate them to act just hearing these figures. It has to be something that's real and tangible, like their kid starving. because most people are stupid. And, it's like a dog. If you were to walk up to a dog and try to intellectualize what you want the dog to do, you're not going to get anything out of the dog, right? What the dog understands is either pain, it's carrot or stick, right? Either you yell at the dog or hit him or whatever, or you give him a treat. Like, those are your two tools in getting behavior out of a dog. It's carrot or stick. And in America, there's just too many carrots. There's just piles and piles of carrots just laying around rotting. There's just there's different flavors of carrots, and there's some carrots are better than others, but I mean, there's so many carrots, we're throwing them away. It's impossible to not find a carrot. No matter what your behavior is, you'll be able to find a carrot. There's still carrots. You can be the shittiest human being on earth, and you're still going to be able to find a bucket of carrots somewhere. And the sticks, well, the ruling class has a monopoly on sticks. So it's, there's not a lot of stick where you would need stick if you want people to rise up, or whatever your plan is, to go against the ruling class. Because the ruling class has all the sticks. And there's some individuals with sticks, I guess, but that's not enough. You would need power structures, existing power structures with sticks. And the ruling class, and even then, the stick's not enough. You'd have to have the ruling class run out of carrots, and then you'd have to have sticks. It's something that I don't see happening on a large enough scale to matter. In other words, from a populist standpoint, like something like this could, if the ruling class wants there to be civil war, there'll be civil war, right? That's easy for them to engineer because they control the flow of the carrots. So if they want there to be a carrot shortage, that's easy to do. They can engineer that. I'm just saying, for the average person, if you want to engineer something like that, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. There's things you could do as a group that would create a carrot shortage, but it would be, again, you'd probably need the help of some kind of institutional power, some state power, maybe a foreign state power, I guess, but you could also, there'd be maybe domestic state powers that would share your ideology and want to do the same sort of a thing. In other words, one of the things that was exciting, and maybe on some level still is, about the Texas lawsuit that the Supreme Court punted because they're cowards and assholes, was an institutional power that has the ability to wield carrots and sticks. And so if you had a state like, it doesn't have to be Texas, just any state hierarchy that's willing to go toe-to-toe with the federal powers, the federal establishment, then now we're talking. That's how civil wars end up. Civil wars don't start because of a handful of people want to have a civil war. You have to have institutional backing, right? Like during the first Civil War, when you had the South seceding, was Virginia was the first? I forget what the first state was, but that was states deciding to do that. It wasn't just like a handful of people in the states. Like the state government had to make those decisions. So that's one way you could make it happen, and maybe that would happen under the right conditions. I mean, I don't know. In a certain scenario, if your movement was politically popular, and that would be an easier thing to accomplish. If you had a very politically popular in your state movement, you could take over a state government. That would be a really difficult thing to do. But I think potentially citizens of a small, especially like a smaller state, geographically, I think they could take. I mean, no. Now, keep in mind, if you try doing that, the feds would get involved in a heartbeat, and it wouldn't be a picnic, and a lot of people would die. I mean, you'd have to be serious. Like, if you wanted to take over a fucking state government, that would not be easy street. And again, you'd have to have people out in the streets in support of you, because you couldn't just be some like weirdos that go in and storm the state government, state capitol and say, I declare this, we're a free state now, and we've kidnapped the governor, or like what, that would never go anywhere. But if you had the support of the people of that state, and it wouldn't even have to be 100% support, just enough to where there's lots of people in the streets. I mean, there were people that thought, for example, excuse me, that Antifa was going to be able to take over, Portland, right? Or they were going to be able to take over, Seattle or something like that with one of these. Well, I guess these riots are still fucking going on. And you know what? They might have been able to if they were a little more organized and they had. Let me put it this way: they sure as shit had the opportunity to do that, but they don't have the organization skills, the military skills, or even the public support to make that happen. And that's the closest thing we've ever seen in this country in modern times to anything like that. And they weren't even close. They had the chance, but they didn't have nearly the amount of resources required for that. Because it'd have to be, again, you're basically going to war. It's an insurrection. You want, like, if you're trying to do like a real insurrection, it's not a video game. All right, let's take a look here. If some weirdos capture a nuclear plant and hold the world's hostage in Minecraft, is that possible? Look, that could be a part of it. In a total fictional hypothetical scenario, obviously, that's what all this stuff is. I guess that they could, but again, like you're talking about like and just look, holding a power plant hostage isn't going to do anything, because you'd have to know how the power plant worked. You'd have to, and there's so many safeguards. Like, I don't even think you can produce a meltdown on purpose. If you can, that's like a huge flaw. I think a lot of that stuff's automated. I don't think that's. Maybe it could be part of your strategy. Maybe, or you could even just threaten it, and people don't know enough to know if you're, how much. If you could just cut off communication to the power plant, it'd probably scare a lot of people. Like, oh god, they've got this nuke plant. But I think it'd almost be smarter just to shut power off to the area and hold that hostage. Like, we're going to keep the power off until we get what we want. Something like that. I don't know. But even then, like I said, you would need, because that's going to just piss people off, right? So, like, let's say you're just this weird group and you take over a power plant and you shut the power off to a major metropolitan area, and you're using that, or even you use your idea where you hold it hostage or something in some way, right? If the people in that metropolitan area who are in danger because you've shut their power off, or because you're threatening to blow it up or something like that, like, they're not going to be too happy with you. You catch more flies with honey, right? So in this crazy hypothetical, I think that would just wouldn't be very useful. Like I said, end of the day, you need institutional backing. It would be very difficult unless you had, you would need thousands of people. Something that's almost impossible to coordinate. Thousands of trained, disciplined people to rise up and just take something over. Unless, like, as I said, you had popular public appeal already. Like the Revolutionary War. Like, people always like to say, oh, only 15% of Americans participated in that, and that's all you needed, and it worked. And it's like, yeah, right, that's true. And but that's like a huge number. 15% is still a huge number. In a city like I don't know, what's the population of New York these days? Population. All right, so population of New York City. No, it's not. Oh, I want the whole metro area because it's saying like 9 million. I know it's. I'll just do New York State, right? Population of New York State. The population of New York State. It's like a harder number to get for some reason than I thought it would be. Oh, well, there's something here that says, okay, 19 million, right? 19 million. Or almost 20 million. So if we do, I'll just do the exact math here. It's 19,453,000, blah, blah, blah. And so if you had 15% of that, you have almost 3 million people. That doesn't sound right. No, I guess that's right. Yeah, so you have almost 3 million people still. So it's let me double check that math. That doesn't sound right. 19.4 million. Oh yeah, I guess that's right. So you'd have almost 3 million people. So that's a lot of fucking people. That's a lot of fucking people. We probably don't have 3 million people that would consider themselves dissident right in the entire country. Maybe not even the world. I don't know. I mean, we're a lot smaller than I think people understand. I think we get in echo chambers, especially because a lot of people are doing so much interaction online and not as much in the real world. It's harder to get to have your finger on the pulse of the society that you live in, because you spend so much of the time not in that society so much as in this digital version of it, which is portable and it includes the entire world, right? So it seems like a lot of people, because worldwide, okay, there's a lot of people, but in your local area, probably not so many. So while it seems like, oh no, we've got lots of people on our side, not really. And even if you look, if you look at the like the Stop the Steal rallies and stuff like that, I mean, that's not really our people. I mean, it's people that are probably adjacent or sympathetic to us or whatever, right? And maybe given the right education would be on our side. But a lot of those people are just, they're I mean, they're part of the system. They don't see. Some of them are starting to slowly wake up and realize that the system's broken beyond repair because their vote didn't count, right? That's why this is a good thing that this is happening, because it is generating more of that. But if you look at, I mean, even now, you look at a lot of these fucking people, especially like the CivNat people, even on YouTube, all these, like Morgoth did a good video talking about Styx, who I find insufferable. But there was Styx, who's like the king of milquetoast, like I'm stuck in this 90s. I'm edgy because I'm satanic, retarded mode of whatever. But anyway, he's been pushing this whole time that the election is clearly rigged. The election is clearly rigged. Obviously, it's rigged. But his solution is, all right, so this, in order to win this time, we just have to make better memes and vote harder in a rigged system. And that's, that's not an unusual take. A lot of the CivNats are saying the exact same thing. A lot of the CivNats are saying, yes, it was rigged, and yes, it was stolen, and yes, therefore we must keep making memes and vote harder. Because they're part of the system. Their success, financial and otherwise, depends on the very system. They have to protect the system because they benefit from it. So even when the system, they've been admitting that the system is fundamentally flawed, they have the doublethink at the end. They can't present options that would actually repair the system. And a lot of people are too dumb to think beyond that. So while there are some people that are responding to people like Styx appropriately and saying you're retarded and self-serving and probably anorexic, there are also a lot of people who are just kind of going with it. Like, yep, I guess we have to meme harder this time. Guess we have to own the libs a little harder this time. And if you listen to the people that you have in power, quote unquote, like the so-called representatives that you have in government, how is it always framed? Well, how do we fix this for next time? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? You see what I mean? Like it's kind of like saying, the body is dead, laying face first in the mud, no longer breathing. And the medic runs up and says, well, how can we prevent this from happening again? And it's like, well, it won't, because you don't die twice. You're dead. That's it. It's too late to prevent it from happening again. Because what happened was terminal. You can meme all day long. You can't meme this person back to life any more than you can meme this system back to life. The system it's dead. It's already dead. It's just a matter of people have to acknowledge it, and that's going to take some time. And it's going to take some pain. It's going to take some... it's one thing it's like I was saying during the riots, a lot of people thought, oh, this is going to do it. This is going to put people over the edge. And I said, no, it's not, because it's just entertainment. Now, it's going to get some people thinking, it's going to get smarter people thinking, people that do look ahead, that maybe just weren't paying attention to what was going on, but now this is going to wake them up and they're going to pay attention to what's going on. That's not the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people don't react. They don't act, they react. And so they won't respond until that rioting is literally going on in their living room. It's most people just don't pay attention to what the hell's going on and don't think about how they don't think about trajectories so much as they think excuse me, about what's happening right now. They're not very good at predicting the future, obviously. And in fact, humans are also famously bad at listening to bad sources for that. Like whether you're talking about the 900 number for the fake Jamaican black lady who's going to tell you your future, horoscopes, or QAnon. That's how bad many humans are at predicting the future. They all want to know what the future is, but many of them just don't have the capacity for kind of predicting this kind of stuff. And so they end up listening to just nonsense. And it's usually nonsense that makes them feel good rather than feel worried. Because no one wants to feel worried. It's a negative emotion. And it usually means you have to do something. And people don't like to do stuff. So it's gonna take those riots are gonna have to be going on in your living room, and even then you don't know. I mean, look, there's another black pill for a lot of people was when you'd see these illegal immigrants rape some girl to death, and then you'd hear their parents, the parents of the dead girl on TV a couple days later saying that we need more illegal immigrants. So, like, even when it happens to them directly, it's kind of like, what the fuck? There's some kind of masochism going on here. So it has to get really bad before it gets better, and we're not even close to the very bad. So the solution, therefore, in the short term, is just to separate yourself from the bad, if you can. Especially if you have children, try to prepare them for the bad, and try to keep them out of the bad as much as you possibly can. And think about living outside of the system that is designed to negatively impact you. I mean, it's designed to either control you or punish you in one way or the other. It's not designed to benefit you. Let me take a look here. Then they forgive the guy. Yeah, no, it's. Yeah, well, there's that. I'm sure you've seen this because it's floated around so much. There was even there's two stories. There's the fucking lady who these two black guys raped and killed her daughter, and now she takes care of them, and they're best friends. And it's supposed to be like this great story of healing, and it's just disgusting to me. And then there was that other story that was very similar, where a mother there was a girl who got raped and killed by this guy, and she befriended him for some reason. And when he got out of prison, he raped and killed her. Or I don't know if he raped her, but he killed her. It's there. That seems to be more of like a white woman thing than anything else. But because it's just, I think it's a white people thing. It's a white feminine thing. And as they feminize men, it's coming from the men too. It's this weird suicidal tendency that I'm often reminded of the Green Mile, when the big Green Mile guy, I always forget his name, when he's thinking back to when he's for those of you who've seen them, if you haven't seen the movie, this isn't going to make any sense. But when he's like Tom Hanks or whatever is saying like, oh, you're having a flashback, because he would have these visions of how these horrible crimes took place, and he has this flashback of these two little girls who get raped and killed, of course, by a white guy, not him, the black guy. He's totally innocent. And he says, he killed them with they love. He killed them with they love. Meaning that, like, he used their love of each other against, them. And he was so horrified by that. And Tom Hanks is just, like, broken by hearing that. But that's, I kind of feel like that's how white people are being exploited. Is they're killing us with our own, with our love, which is why the time for love is over. We've been more than more than I think generous with our love. Let me take a look at chat here. Yeah, but those tendencies are being eliminated from the population because the predators are killing those overly feminized whites. Nope. No. We're still, if we weren't in the minority, we would have political power. We don't have political power. Not even Trump. Not even Trump would acknowledge the dissident right. Never. People got excited because one time he said there were good people on both sides. Like that, and that's like the closest to an acknowledgement that you would ever get from him. And he paid politically for it for the rest of his presidency. We have no political support whatsoever. Because we have no power. We don't have numbers. We don't have numbers. We don't have institutional power. Now that'll change eventually, but like I said, it has to get a lot worse. I don't think you guys maybe a lot of you aren't prepared for how much worse I'm talking. But it's a lot worse. I mean, think of how numb you are to the trans shit now, right? Compared to, say, 10 years ago. If I were just to show you some of the normal things that you see, like the normal trans shit, how appalling and shocking it would be, right, to the senses. I mean, because you remember, 10 years ago, even gay marriage wasn't normalized yet. Okay, so trans kids, that would be like fucking next level, what the fuck, right? And now think of how personally speaking, how numb you are to it. You know, you still think it's gross and bad and all, but you're numb to it. You don't have an emotional response maybe quite as much as you did initially, right? You've been worn down. Your sensitivity to it is gone. Well, that means we have to move on to the next thing. Because it has to get so bad that stops happening. And look, it's happened to me too. I'm numb to the trans shit now already. Most people are. And you'll be surprised at how many things you will become numb to. And it won't be until the things that are happening are so shocking and so evil that there's enough people who are motivated to actually stop it. And right now we're not there. We're not even close to there. We're not even close to there. I mean, for fuck's sake, dude, we got late. Look at just our side. You know, our side, quote unquote. We got Lady fucking MAGA. Our side is part of the problem. You know, we have TPUSA pushing the gay conservative norm. So the rot has not even, the acceptance and the tolerance is still on the rise. And probably what it'll take, honestly, because I don't think that in all of history there's ever a time when an entire population just one day has had enough and they do something. That doesn't happen like that. It takes a charismatic leader to channel that. I mean, the energy will be there. I think the energy is already starting to bubble up a little bit, right? And honestly, Trump could have been that guy. And that's who a lot of people thought Trump was. He clearly wasn't, but that's who a lot of people were hoping Trump was. But I think that if you have a charismatic leader who can channel that kind of that immune response that's kind of bubbling under the infection and direct its energy towards the infection, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a charismatic leader because right now there's no unity, and we're outnumbered. So things have to get worse. So there's more of an immune response, right? So like the infection has to get worse, so that the body generates more white blood cells, or I don't know. I'm not a medic person. Enough of an immune response, and then you have to have the charismatic leader that can direct that response towards the infection intelligently, so it's not just swinging wildly at little bits of the infection around it. You know, you have to direct it towards the problem, and then you have to hope that it doesn't overreact, and once the infection is gone, it doesn't just keep attacking the body, which happens a lot. So in the meantime, just get ready. You can live insulated from the infection site. You can remove yourself from the infection site. You can make sure that you and your family are safely far away from the cancer cells, and that you are slowly preparing yourself for the day that the cancer gets eradicated. I mean, at least that's one option. That's one option. I think there's other options. Like, you could leave. You know, there's a lot of people that have just said fuck it, and they go somewhere else. But like the cancer is all throughout the West. I don't know where you go. It'll catch up with you eventually. You might save a little bit of time, or waste a little bit of time, depending on how you look at it, I guess. Let me take a look at chat here. Let's see here. Brainwash morons still giving Netflix money. Well, that's the other thing too. Is you got to, if you're feeding the infection, you can't be mad at the infection. You're part of the problem. If you still have Netflix at this point, you are part of the problem. You might not want to think of it that way, but it's true. You're part of the problem still. If you're paying for Amazon Prime, you're part of the problem. If you're paying for movie tickets, to these big Hollywood movies, you're part of the problem. If you're shopping at any of these companies, I mean, this is just minimal. This is very minimal. Minimal shit. Now, there's some things you could say that are, it's just the cost benefit isn't there. Sure. Okay. Look, at a certain point, you gotta eat, right? So if the enemy owned all food sources, until you could grow your own, which is what you should be concentrating on if that was the case, you would have to still buy from the enemy to eat, right? But that's not what people are doing. What people are doing is they want Amazon Prime because they want their fucking shiny new toy faster. They want same-day shipping on whatever mind rot that they're spending their money on. Or their Netflix, same thing. And look, if you want the mind rot that's offered on Netflix, there's other ways of getting that, all right? You don't have to feed the beast. The other thing is, too, usury. Usury is a gigantic part of the problem. And it's really difficult to get out of. And it's painful to get out of. But that's the big one. Usury. If you can escape usury, life is a lot more simple. So that means paying off any credit cards you might have, any mortgage you might have, and hell, it might even be smarter to say, look, I have a mortgage, but I've got a lot of equity built in this house. Like, let's say you've been living somewhere and paying your mortgage on time for a long time. Maybe there's a way you can sell that place and then just pay cash for a smaller place, or a place that's somewhere else in the country that's cheaper, or something like that, and just get out from underneath the thumb of the banks. That's huge. Because usury is a sin. It's not just a sin for the bankers, it's a sin for you too. If you're participating, and now look, it doesn't mean that you knew that going in, right? Most people didn't. The whole country's built around that system because, we lost our way generations ago. It wasn't your fault, right? I get it. But now you know. And so now you need to do what you can to get out from under that system. Because your labor belongs, you're already a slave to the government, right? Because your labor belongs in part to the government. You're a slave to the government. Well, when you're in the usury system, you're also a slave to the banks. Because some of your labor belongs to the banks. When you work, when you go out, and it doesn't matter what you do, when you go out and work, you're working for some rich, probably Jew. And I want you to picture that in your head. When you go into work, in fact, you can probably do the math, maybe it's the first 3 hours of your workday. Just picture in your head some Jew in a cloud floating over you, like rubbing his hands for all 3 of those hours of work every day. The first 3 hours of work, he's just like, yes, yes, yes. Because that's what's happening. That's every day. For the first 3 hours of your workday. Yes, yes, yes. And then a couple more, it's the government. And the bureaucrats whose salaries you're paying. I mean, if you do the math, it's a little shocking. Once you do the math and figure out that, like, okay, so if I work 8 hours, I am literally a slave for 6 of those. And for some people, it might be, that number might even be higher. Once you articulate that and you realize, because you can't argue against that. That's really how it is. And then it just makes sense to get out of that system as quickly as possible. All right, let's take a look here. Imagine living in Europe and you're a slave for over half your day. Yeah, but that's the case here, especially like in California. Fuck. In California, I was a slave pretty much my entire day. Like, my rent was astronomical. My taxes were astronomical. Because think of all the times you pay taxes. It's not just income tax, although that is a big chunk, right? So you have your federal income taxes, you have your state income taxes for most people, but you also have sales tax. Every time you fill up your gas tank, how much of that per gallon is taxes? Like half of it? Like a lot of it? Maybe more than half in some places. The sales tax, so on everything that you buy, there's some pretty high sales tax out there, especially in California. And then it's not just the sales tax that you're paying when you buy the product. All the way down the road, like the product being produced, Imagine the amount of tax revenue that product being produced is generating, that's adding to the cost of the product. If it's imported, there's the import taxes too. There's so many taxes that you're always paying all the time, and a lot of those taxes get rolled into the cost of things that are then on top of that are taxed. So you're always paying. It doesn't matter if you live in Europe or America, you're always paying a lot of money in taxes. And because you don't have millions of dollars to hire accountants to find loopholes, and you also don't have your income coming from capital gains or something like that, because you and your rich friends have lobbied to avoid taxes at the federal level by somehow, if you get your money from the place that rich people get their money, then you don't pay taxes on it. Oh, that's convenient. No, you're a wage slave, so you pay the taxes. And then the big psyop, right? The big mind fuck that they've done on everyone that's too dumb to sit back and think about it is the refund, right? Like, you think that, at the end of the year, I get something back. No, that just means they stole too much money from you during the year. That's your money. But psychologically, people think of it as a refund. Oh, sweet, I got a rebate from the government. How much did you get back this year? I got $600. Wow, good, nice. What they don't think about is you got $600 out of the $35,000 that they took from you last year. That was the change. They took too much. That's it. But people are too dumb to put it together. If you had to actually write a check for $35,000 at the end of the year, psychologically, that's going to have a bigger difference. First of all, think of how many people just wouldn't save the money, right? So they just their check wouldn't come in, which is why they do the withholding, because they know that people wouldn't have the money to pay. And then they'd have to start thinking, well, what the fuck? I owe you $35,000. I have to write a check. I don't have $35,000. So they've created this whole psyop called the refund, where they just take your money by force throughout the year, so you don't have to save it and think about how much money they're taking. And then they give you some of it back, like a present. All right, so let's take a look here. Austrians, I don't know what you guys are talking about, Austrians and Germans. Under Obama, Americans were paying over $4 a gallon for gas. Well, you can still pay over $4 a gallon of gas for in certain parts of the country. I mean, I think you could. I mean, I remember in California when I was there last, it was getting close to $5 a gallon, in certain places. And a lot of that's tax. At the state level, even at some counties add their own tax. That gets taxed all the way up and down. Yule celebration video by Red Eyes TV. All right. Red Eyes are good people. I haven't seen that, though. All right, guys. How long have we been doing this for? Almost 2 hours? Is there anything you guys would like to talk about before I wrap things up here? Like I said, I will be on Patriotic Alternative today at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to discuss Q in detail. And I was thinking maybe I would do a Christmas stream, because my understanding is D-Lives copyright detection is tenuous at best, so we might be able to get away with watching a Christmas movie, especially if I don't go too crazy about it. One thing I was going to talk about today that we missed, that I forgot to, well, maybe we can talk about that tomorrow or something, but anyway, let's see, look at chat here. Christmas tree, Brave New World. What do I think about Q? You guys will find out at 2 o'clock p.m. I think everyone knows, though. Will vaccines change anything? No, it won't, because already, I mean, this is what I don't understand, because I remember when they were first freaking out about coronavirus, they were saying, oh, well, the reason why coronaviruses are so scary is the common cold is a coronavirus, and that's why there's no vaccine for the common cold, because it mutates so much. And so we'll never be able to get a vaccine for the coronavirus because that's blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, then they're like, oh, we magically have a vaccine in record time. And what's literally a day later? Oh, it's mutated. It's mutated, and so the vaccine doesn't work anymore. And it's everywhere, and so we must shut down travel, and everyone locked up for Christmas again. And, what were you expecting? I mean, this isn't about saving lives. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you, man. They really don't. And they're not, and it's not politicians doing it out of fear, because if they were, you would see them following their own rules, because they'd legitimately they'd be afraid of this stuff. They're not. You look at the footage that person got of, I think it was Newsom hanging out with the California medical advisory people at this ritzy restaurant with no masks on. And these are the people making the decision. They're clearly not afraid of themselves getting it. It's not about, it has nothing to do with, none of it has anything to do with saving lives. Like I said, for all I know, what I've got is the big scary virus. It's not that big of a deal. Like, it's really hard to die from this thing. In fact, it's so hard to know if you have it, you have to get tested to find out. If it was so bad, you wouldn't need testing, because they would just be like, holy shit, he got it because his arms fell off, or whatever the fuck symptom would be that would make it so horrifying. So I wouldn't worry about that. This time on Christmas, streaming a movie? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have any plans for Christmas. I'm doing a lot of work around the homestead. A lot of outdoor stuff. But it's cold as fuck. And there's some of it's, a lot of it's not that oh, it's too cold, I can't go outside. But I'm painting, right? You can't paint in freezing temperatures. And so I have to wait. It's funny because it's the desert, so even though it'll get down to freezing at night, it does warm. Sometimes it's crazy. It gets up to the 70s. And then, in the day, for a few hours, and then it drops down. As soon as the sun drops back behind the mountain, it's in an instant. You can tell. You're just oh, fuck, it's cold. But I'm doing a lot of painting, and I'm doing some roof work, which involves this sealant stuff. And you can't do that in freezing temperatures. So in the mornings like this, and this is when my internet works, right? So in the mornings like this, this would probably be the best time to do it. If I do it a Christmas stream, it'll either have to be late at night or early in the morning, because that's when my internet works. The only reason why I'm able to do Patriotic Alternative today is I'm going to be using my phone data, what's left of it. Hopefully it'll hold up long enough to do the entire interview. But I've even told Mark, I was like, there's a chance it'll eat shit and not make it, and he wants to try it anyway, so we'll see. Hopefully it works, but my internet doesn't work during the day for some reason. Oh boy. So but yeah, we could do a Christmas Eve You know, maybe we can do like a Santa tracker thing, huh? I could track Santa. Yeah. Oh, the good old days. You know, as a kid, I believed in Santa probably too long. Like either that or I was just like really. It's funny because like I was, I was convinced. I mean, I had always had like a big imagination, obviously, but I was convinced I was going to get evidence of Santa, right? And I was really good with like electronics when I was a kid. My parents would get really mad because they would give me some expensive toy or, you know, expensive for them. It'd be some Radio Shack thing, right? That probably wasn't that expensive, but I would immediately take it apart, you know, and start, you know, fiddling with the components and stuff like that. And that's just what I did. So I had like my closet was just full of like fucking wires and components and stuff like that. And I literally made a bug, and bugged the Christmas tree. And hooked it up to like this old tape recorder, and like I had like this whole thing where I was going to capture evidence of Santa Claus, and you know, obviously it never worked, never panned out. In fact, I don't even know if I ever I don't think I could ever stay awake that long. I think my parents like were good at knowing when I was asleep. Like I still had my headphones on. I'd wake up with my headphones on and be like, "Oh damn it, I missed it." But yeah, that was one of the things I used to do. Anyway, hope you guys are having a good Christmas season, and hopefully you guys are having a good 2020. You know, hopefully 2020 has spared you at least any kind of significant pain. It's been mostly entertaining, like it has been for me. Because it's just going to get more entertaining. 2020 was not the end of this. It's not like, oh, it's 2021 now. We're back to normal. No. Get ready for the dark winter. So, yeah, make sure you check into Patriot Alternative today, and I'll do another stream probably either really late tonight or early tomorrow morning. And on Christmas as well. And I'll have something more prepared. I just was really busy last night and didn't get anything put together. So I'll actually have I won't be just winging it like I was today. So in the meantime, for Black Pilled, of course, I am Devin Stack.